magnificent morning, wonderful afternoon, and fantastic evening. This is Carla from Mindful with Carla and Friends, and we are here to talk to you. And when I say we, I am talking about Jean Locke Alford, Cameron Rizvi, and Mirza Ali. And I hope I'm getting the names correct because I'm just beginning to focus. I was out of the house and I'm back here now, so things have been a little shambled, but not anymore. I want to ask people, do you think your thoughts create your reality, or your reality is created by what you see in the world? I tend to believe that it's our thoughts and how we think and how we are emotionally that creates the reality around us. If we are happy, things seem to go very well and things begin to fall into place. But when we're sad and we're questioning things all over the world, and boy, I don't like what's happening in Ukraine. Don't think I do like it. I don't. Or boy, I need more money. When is it coming? And we're worrying about money. Our focus becomes the negative. And when it becomes the negative, what happens is we begin to create a negative world around us. But if we begin to accept the world as it is and just decide to be happy because we're breathing, then life begins to flow a lot easier. So having said that, I am going to hand the mic over to Jean, who I know must have quotes because she always does. And we're going to move the show forward. Jean, do you want to take the mic? And if you don't want to, you need to anyway.
Yeah, I just need to grab a hold of it. Here we go. So I do have some quotes, and I do want to say that with these deep thinkers, Carla, we don't even have a clue where this conversation's going to go. So I'm excited about that. But I want to start off.
We never know how the conversation is going to go until it happens. But look at the people we have. We have wonderful, wonderful people here today.
Yes, so I want to start with Lao Tzu. I seem to be drawn to his quotes, but he says, be careful what you water your dreams with. Water them with worry and fear, and you will produce weeds that choke the life from your dream. Water them with optimism and solutions, and you will cultivate success. Always be on the lookout for ways to turn a problem into an opportunity for success. Always be on the lookout for ways to nurture your dream. So there's one. Then Harriet Tubman wrote, every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. I like putting those two together because if you think about watering the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars with optimism and solutions, you become a very powerful combination. And then Christopher Reeve, who is an actor that we know had a terrible accident and was a paraplegic before he passed. He wrote, so many of our dreams at first seem impossible. Then they seem improbable. And then when we summon the will, they soon become inevitable. In other words, we can change what our, I'm searching for the word. We can change our outcomes. We can change our own history by doggedly following our dreams. So when you think about that, and we go back to your original position about dreams and thoughts, Carla. I think those kind of paint a really powerful picture on how important understanding our dreams and our goals is, plus how we align our thoughts to those. So, Cameron, as the resident philosopher, how does that sound to you?
Sounds very comforting indeed. And I would like to sort of shed a light on Henry Ford's saying, which is that if you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, you're right in both instances. And it's your pick, it's your choice. So that's the first thought that comes to mind, because whenever we try to make sense of the world in which we live, I feel that we are by default biased. And as a result, we view events and happenings around us and the world in which we spend our days and nights through that bias, the unconscious bias that we carry. All of us do. And I don't believe that one can be unbiased in this world either. So if I'm very positive and hopeful and optimistic, that's a bias. I've chosen that bias. And if I'm extremely dejected and skeptical and cynical and, hopeless, that's a bias. And it is really a choice that we have to make, which bias is going to serve our life and our community and our organization, which bias is going to serve us, and to be biased in that way. So our thoughts certainly, and this proposition, our thoughts create reality, is very, very true, and I would subscribe to it 100%. And here I'd like to shed light on a concept which is not international, not global, because these two words, international and global, it's a worldview which is based on facts. And when we base our worldview on facts, we use terms like international, meaning countries relating to each other, and global village. It again assumes that there is one planet on which 7.5 billion people are thriving or living or struggling or warring, whatever. But there are 7.5 billion or so people on this one planet called Earth, which is part of the solar system. So this is a factual way of looking at the world in which we are. However, when we approach reality from the standpoint of perception, then instantly we move from the one world concept into a multi-world concept, meaning that right this minute, there are four of us, there are four worlds interacting with each other. I live in my world, Mirza in his, Jean in hers, and of course, Carla is always in her world, and we are constantly invited by her to be with her. So I was addressing an audience in Islamabad recently, and I asked the audience the question, how many of you know Pakistan? Show of hands. And most of them raised their hands. And I said, all right, so on what basis do you say you know Pakistan? And someone said that I know the square kilometers, I know the population, I know the GDP, I know the industries that we have, the exports. I said, hold on a second. That may be a factual description of this country. However, if you were to really know Pakistan, then there are 230 million people in this country, approximately. And each individual of the 230 million, each individual has a view of the country itself. And unless you know those hearts that are throbbing, the 230 million hearts that are throbbing, how can you claim to know Pakistan? Pakistan is 230 million perspectives. And I'm, of course, counting infants as well. But if you take those out, you're still talking of at least 175 million who have a view. And leadership, in my mind, is simply to be aware not only of your perspective, but of the perspective of those around you, within your family, neighborhood, community, because it is such an enriching phenomena. We can never get bored or come to the conclusion, oh, I know. We'll never know, because knowing is the biggest adventure on this planet. And Jean, I loved what you said, that I don't know enough to be scared. I think that's the next feat. So I just thought I'll set the ball rolling now, and then of course I'll continue.
You know, it's really important what you said. I don't know enough to be scared. If
Yeah.
we don't know and we just decide to dive in, then we dive in and it comes naturally, whatever happens. I knew nothing when I started the English show. And I probably would have never done it if someone hadn't pushed me to it. Mind War was another thing. I had no idea where it was going to go. And I really never thought it would be still going after 2 years. And we're going on our 3rd year in November.
Wow.
And all of this happened because I wasn't thinking about being scared. I didn't have time to be scared. I just jumped in. Mirza, I just had to comment. Mirza, what would you like to say?
Well, I mean, it goes back to what you said. Fear is face everything and rise above the problem that you're facing in life. Once you become bigger than the problem, but you fear and you don't face, it controls you. But what do you fear and you take steps to face, you start controlling it. So it's the other way around. Now, coming back to what Mr. Kamran was saying so eloquently, life and reality creation is all about your perception. It's your perspective. It's your paradigm shift and worldview. And behind this perspective and perception is the thoughts that you're choosing. That inner reality, inner intention is manifesting your external reality, external intention. And everyone has their own way of seeing the reality. It's spirit lies within, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. It takes my mind back to the there's a saying that there were a few blind men. They were arguing with each other that, hey, this is how elephant looks like. And one wise guy, he's like, okay, you know what? There you go. There's the elephant. Go touch it. Now they were blind. The person who was able to touch the tail, he's like, oh, elephant is a snake. The person who touched the leg of the elephant, he's like, no, it's like a tree trunk. The person who was touching the teeth of the elephant, he's like, no, elephant is like a spear, like a sword, right? Another guy who was touching the tummy and belly of the elephant, he's like, no, elephant is a wall. So we all live according to our perception and perspective, our paradigm shift and worldview. And that is governing the reality that we are creation. And the fundamental foundational ingredient, like Mr. Kamran said, and Jean said so eloquently, is the thoughts. Thoughts become things. Your thoughts would create your reality. And then those thoughts are fundamental ingredient. Thoughts are the vibrational frequency. Thoughts are, your feelings will determine your dealings. Your emotions will determine your life's motion. It's energy in motion. Thoughts are female, emotions are male. You combine them both together, a creation happens. And that creation is you call your belief. And your belief will create your reality. Your reality will create your personality. Your personality will create your identity. Your identity will define who you are on a core level. All these things are so tied together. Now, reality creation is, like Mr. Kamran was saying, so spot on, is you have to be biased about your reality. There's a confirmation bias. Reality is the most delusional subject that mankind don't understand. It's based on your beliefs. It's a projection of your belief, your inner world, inner reality, inner intention, your self-image, self-esteem. And in order for you to create the reality, you have to first elevate yourself internally with evolution and revolution. So it's excitation before inhibition. So few things that I would go, like, it's very popular. He was quoting Henry Ford. Your mind has no choice but to accept it as a fact, as a reality. Whatever you tell yourself is what you sell yourself, right? So you are constantly creating a reality. You are constantly rewiring, reframing, reconditioning, repercepting, reparadigm shifting, repatterning your patterns of existence. And beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, spirit lies within. And the thoughts that we choose, that will project the life that we architect, because we are the angel, we are the Michael Angel of our life. We see an angel in the marble and chisel it out and carve it out. That's how we have to work on our personality, and that's all there is to it. And reality creation is not one time. Behind this reality creation, there's an awareness. Awareness is the first step to change, and then whatever mind can visualize, it can materialize. Whatever mind can conceive and believe, it will achieve. That unseen controls the scene. That metaphysical converts stuff into physical. That esoteric will convert stuff into exoteric. So it's inside out, not outside in. But I totally agree and echo with the topic that you have. It's very thought provoking, Carla. Thanks for creating it. The thoughts create your reality.
So I'd like to posit a possible summary of what you said, Mirza. Tell me if I'm right or wrong, but to bring it down to sea level for everybody to understand, it seems to me what you're saying is the thoughts that we are aware of become our filter for how we experience the world.
Exactly. The lens that you see the world through, the perception and perspective, because it's the same thought in your mind. It can make you or it can break you. It can be empowering, it can be disempowering. It will make you mentally strong or strongly mental, gives you endless hope or hopeless end. It will take you to the peak of your life or pit of your life, and it's all a choice. And once you become an overseer and observer and the permitter to those thoughts, then you're able to see through your thoughts, and you live in a level of transcendence, and you're able to turn any situation into your desired outcome, because you're seeing the situation from a bird's eye view. That will give you the control, because your existence and your experiences are two different things. You create a separation between them. And I quoted this before, that Einstein says, a mind will not solve the problem at the level of consciousness that has created the problem. You come out of that, and it'll give you the control over a situation. So the problem is not the problem. Your and my response to the problem is always the problem. But when we will change the way we look at the things that we look at, they change. So that's where I hope I'm making sense.
So as you know, I like to get really practical and figure out how do we apply this. And this brings up about the reason why we take a deep breath and calm down, why we meditate or contemplate, because then we can go to what I say in a business meeting, because you need to be, you need to speak a certain way in a business meeting. I always say, let's go to 35,000 feet, because in an airplane at 35,000 feet, you cannot see detail. You cannot get washed away by everybody's interpretation of the details. You're looking at trends and the way things are moving as a big picture. And then as you come closer down, and that's where I come in usually, as we move down to 25 to 15 to 10 to sea level, then you get to the level of tactics that get you where you want to be. And it's the same in our thoughts when we have all these thoughts. And I want to share with the audience, we're only aware of a small percentage of those thoughts. I think a life-changing conversation came from Deepak Chopra when he talked about the speed of thought being the same as the speed of bosons and quarks in the quantum fields, and that we're only aware of a small percentage. And when we become aware that we're only aware of a small percentage, then we can contemplate, meditate, sit down and think a little bit about what else is out there. And that's where we get to change our life. So Carla, I know one of the issues that when you asked me this question about dreams, are our dreams driven by our thoughts or the outside world? One of the things is the people, I believe, who make changes in the world, who make a difference, have a way of reaching into that miasma of thoughts that we're not aware of. They just know. When you say to somebody, how did you know this would work? Usually they go, I don't know, it just seemed like it would work. That's part of those thoughts that we're not aware of. So when we take those deep breaths and we release that monkey mind of fear, fight, flight, or freeze, then we start to get into that more almost conceptual mindset where we can say, yes, I can do this. Every time I sit down to write an article or to run a workshop, I have a moment where I go, what am I doing? Why are they asking me to do this? And then I take a deep breath. I kind of shimmy about a little bit. I was teaching my kids. I taught a first grade summer school class this year, and I taught my kids, when you take a deep breath, hold it, then release it all and wiggle, 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 change that energy, because that makes a difference in how you respond to your thoughts. Then those thoughts that go, what am I doing? Become, oh, I know what I'm doing. I got this. I can do it. And you step out and you do whatever it is that you're challenged from. I like to look at challenges, for example, as puzzles. Anything that's challenging has a solution. And when you're working on a puzzle, you're always looking for that solution. What piece do we need to put so that this puzzle comes together? What piece do we need to take away so this puzzle comes together? So Mirza, I think that was a great conversation. I just like to bring it down to sea level a little bit, to where it's taking time to breathe, taking time to live, taking time to be, because we forget. I know at least in my culture, they honor human doings. The busier you are, the more effective you must be. The busier you are, the smarter you are, versus human beings who can sit back and say, this is life. This is where it's going. I get it. I see it. Now let's work for it. And relax to be. I'm actually not at home. I'm at somebody else's house taking care of their pets. And one of the things I can tell you is dogs and their unconditional love give us a lesson in how to reach our dreams, because they don't stop. If they want to be petted, they will show you, I want to be petted. If they want to be fed, they will tell you. There's no questioning, oh, can I ask her? Is she ready to feed me? No, they're in your face. This unconditional love makes a complete difference in how you can show up in the world. But who you love unconditionally has to start with yourself. And that's what I'm learning from these. I've got 4 dogs that I'm taking care of, and they all have different personalities, and they all have ways of telling me what they want. And I have been enjoying it because I knew we were going to have this discussion, and I needed to share that with you.
And you know what? You're talking about emotions. Or I'm bringing that up, learning to accept our emotions. That's very hard for some people, because we've been told emotions are just something that you can put to the side and not deal with. Being logical is more important.
Power through that, Carla. Power through that.
Power through it. I'm having trouble with it. But dealing with emotions is a big thing. And we often forget that. And we get stuck in saying, oh, like last night, I was feeling a little insecure, and I called you and you said, is this your thing or my thing? And I said, it's my thing, and I need to deal with it. And my insecurities are making them through right now. But in dealing with the insecurity, I can either decide to trust a very a well-known spiritual leader, Sri Ravi Shankar, always says, take for granted that everyone loves you. Whether you want to accept it or not, just take it for granted. And that's something I have had such trouble with. And because of that, I go back to, oh, no one likes me. No one wants to do the show. No one wants this or that. And that's not true. But I allow myself to get into that negativity. I don't believe I'm being so open about it here.
Well,
And
well,
after, just let me finish one more thought and I will close my mouth. And I've been listening. Anyone who knows me well knows I've been listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks every day. And it's always bringing your emotions, looking at what makes you happy instead of sticking with what makes you sad. And the moment that I decided, I made a real conscious decision to do that a few days ago, although you got the call.
change next time.
To allow the happiness to overweigh the sadness. And it has changed many things. You wanted to say something?
Well, I think that you bring up emotion and it's really important. And yes, in our culture, emotion has been denigrated to, the bottom left corner. We're not supposed to pay attention to it. Yet, I will tell you, when I train speakers, I have them take a deep breath before they even start. And that actually takes a lot of practice. But I tell them that grounds them, that gives them the ability to stand in their own being. And then I actually tell them to look out at the audience. Most of them go, but I heard you're supposed to picture the audience in their underwear, or you're supposed to look above their head, or all these different things. And I said, forget about that. 99% of the people out in that audience actually support you and want you to be successful. You need to believe that. You're up there because you're the expert. There is nobody else in the world that is as expert at you as you. So it takes a while to get people to understand that when I'm training them. So we practice, and oh, by the way, we practice some more. But I have to do that for myself as well, Carla. We all do. That level of insecurity, it's different for how your upbringing was, clearly. But for many of us, we were told things like children are supposed to be seen and not heard, or better yet, the adults are talking, please stand over there, from a very young age. And then when we become adults, I remember having an executive be upset at the advice I was giving him and give me that look that we all got from our parents, the eyebrows up. And it's supposed to scare you into oblivion. And I remember thinking in my head, this guy's full of it. I'm the expert here, and he's trying to intimidate me. And so, you know what I did? I pulled out the mom look. I don't care who you are, but when you do the mom look well, you scare you scare it out of people. I mean, I've had people go, don't look at me like that. And I'll go, why? Because there's an intensity in the mom look. But what it did was it freed up that power struggle of this gentleman trying to intimidate me when I was the expert, trying to tell me I didn't know what I was doing in the middle of a crisis when I was the one that was saying, here's what we need to do. And if he won, I would have been busy for 4 weeks trying to undo this crisis. But to me, it wasn't a win or lose thing. This was, I'm sorry, you brought me in because I'm the expert. Now let me ask you a question. And so I asked the question and he went, oh, because I brought in a new perspective, a new perception for him. So the thing that we have to do with emotion is learn how to recognize it and then to use it for us. Because I will be honest with you here, nobody else will know, keep it quiet, it's a secret. In that moment, when he gave me the look, I was 10 years old and my dad was screaming at me. I was going to run to my room and cry. That's the emotion that I was feeling at that moment. But I was joking earlier about power through it, but I had to realize in a nanosecond, this is a power struggle and I'm the expert. And that was my own thoughts that had come around to, I've spent 20 some odd years and more learning how to handle these things. And this guy wants to intimidate me. No, I'm not having a replay of a family drama. And that literally, I never thought those words, but that's what went through my head. And what came back, when I gave the mom look, was the way my mother used to respond to my father. And it worked. So yeah, we need to know emotion. We need to recognize emotion. We need to feel emotion. We need to process emotion. And we need to marry that with our thoughts so that we see the way forward. Our emotions and our thoughts are just what's called wayfare signage, I think it's called, that tells you, go this way, restrooms to the left, conference rooms to the right. So as you're looking at your emotions, feeling your emotions, they're telling you which way to go. And when you figure out the right way to go, you just feel like everything's in place. If you make a wrong turn, you kind of feel, something's not right. And so if you listen to your gut, then you go, I'm going to turn around the other way. Yes.
But when you make that turn and you see, oh no, I'm sorry I went that way, you can change your thought to, okay, I want to change the direction. I think I'm going to begin thinking about what will be more satisfying than what I did, because that turn was not a good turn. Cameron, you are nodding your head but not talking.
I'm enjoying the talk that I've heard so far. It's such a lovely conversation. One idea jumps up and then another one. And I must say that the topic itself is very broad and it's about life and how we can make a good life, really. And for that, we have realized that paradigms, beliefs, as Mirza was saying, very clearly articulated by Jean in terms of how to calm ourselves, breathing exercise, and the practical tip, which is to get yourself together and grounded in order to not be frazzled by events, but to make sense of what's going on. And, I got down to three different concepts, which I think are important: meaning or meaninglessness. Now, it's a very simple set of comparisons. No one on this planet would like to feel meaningless. Everyone would like to feel meaningful. And where does the meaning come from in life? It comes from our beliefs, as was discussed so far. It's how we interpret events, paradigm, very rightly said by Mirza. And the power we have is to interpret any event to our advantage and to give it a meaning which triggers emotions that cause us to behave in a way that is constructive in the most challenging of circumstances. So meaning is what we are meaning makers as individuals. And the meaning we make out of experiences is what determines the quality of our life, the emotions that are triggered, and how we use emotions as resources. In fact, when we look at beliefs, we are talking of default settings. It's the unconscious competence. And one belief which I may have shared in one of the mind floors that we've had is there is no bad news. So I've installed that belief. This was back in '94. And then there's a subtext, except for the one that I create for myself. Okay. Now, when you have such a belief that there is no bad news, then what you are by default, you're unconsciously competent in dealing with situations in a very constructive way. So to give you an example, people get very anxious when they go with an outcome in mind. They're expecting a certain outcome and they're anxious because they don't know whether they'll get that outcome or not. Now, if you have a belief which says there is no bad news, you'll not be hooked or married to an outcome. You'll be prepared for whatever outcome comes along and you'll deal with it accordingly. So I've tried this out and it really works. So for example, I went to a company and they wanted to invite me to speak at an event. And after 10 minutes of conversation, they asked me to wait in the boardroom and they'll convey the decision. Now, conventionally, you would be anxious. Will they say yes? Will they say no? Will they hire me, engage me for this assignment? No, I was just enjoying my cup of tea with a newspaper. The gentleman from HR comes in and he says, Cameron, I have good news and bad news. Now, what was my default setting? My default setting was, I have no bad news in life. So I just said that to him flippantly. I said, Fahim Saab, I don't have any bad news in my life. Give me news 1 and news 2. He went on the back foot. And he said, oh, if you put it that way, then news 1 is that we'll pay you 100% of invoice if you perform to expectations. I said, that's fair. How about news 2? We'll pay you 50% of invoice if you do not perform to expectations. So I instantly responded by saying, you've given me good news and very good news. So again, he went on the back foot. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, look, I'm not coming. Just give me 50%. Here's the invoice. 50% on non-performance. Brilliant. I don't have to work, So there you go. So default settings, belief is essentially that. And we have inherited a lot of beliefs from our childhood, which we need to re-examine and shift the ones that are not serving us and install the ones that are. And this is just one example. There are so many positive beliefs you can get from people that you admire on this planet. If you read autobiographies or biographies of people that you admire, you will find beliefs galore. Pick any one of them, install them, and see how you start to transform your life, because your beliefs shape your thoughts. Your thoughts will give rise to the emotions, and those emotions will cause you to behave in the way that you need to. So that is truly very critical. And we are meaning makers, and we need to make meaning which inspires others, not depress others. Frankly, if you were to look at the world today, you can factually tell everyone, convince everyone that the world has come to its apex moment, it's coming to an end, and doom and gloom is around the corner. You can factually substantiate this argument. That's how the world is right now. And equally, we are going through a transformation process. We are going through a transition, a massive reconstruction. We are restructuring humanity and the way we are organized and governance. Old systems are being, replaced by new ideas, and people are becoming more active and conscious. You can define the world the way you want. So leadership really is about thoughts shaping reality and then communicating that in a way that we all come to a shared understanding of the possibilities that we each have. And we need to enrich that vision with the perspectives that everyone brings to the table. And for that, we need to do a lot of listening, a lot of understanding, and not to, take the whip and say, this is what we are about, and this is my vision, and this is how we are going to go forward. No, it has to be inclusive, involving everyone with a lot of respect, listen, and patient. You have to be patient. These things don't happen overnight.
what you said, just let me say this quickly, Mirza, and then you can talk. You said something about accepting the world as it is and seeing the good in the world. The other day, I had someone on the English show. She was supposedly an English teacher. She really is very good. Please don't get me wrong. And I hope I bring up the brightness of her. And sometimes when I'm told you're an English teacher from Pakistan, I've been dealing with a lot of differences about the understanding of English. But right away I said, why don't you come to the English show? And help me out today. I want you to come. And it turned out that I spent most of the hour speaking with her because I realized she and I were not completely on the same page, but we were on the same page for some reasons. And knowing me, you know, I can be very direct, and I was very direct with her. And I thought later, oh no, I've lost her and I don't want to lose her. I want to keep her around. And what I realized, and she said, well, I was unprepared for what you were going to do. And I said, you know what? I'm always unprepared. I don't know what's going to be said until that moment. And what I need to get through to a person until a person says it. But nothing is said in anger. It's all said to help you understand better, because we all think in different ways, and we need to be aware of that. And when we become aware of that and we begin to bring that dream into a reality, what happens? A beautiful blend happens. Okay, Mirza.
I mean, I totally agree with you, and a lot of amazing gems and noodles and nuggets and were said by Gene, Mr. Kamra, and of course, you, Carla. I actually agree with Mr. Kamra in a way that this world used to be very local and linear, mathematically. You had a shop in a place, in a town, in a street. You would get like XYZ customer. Now the same world is a global and exponential. You are one click away from 7.8 billion people. That is the world population. Half the world population is already part of online global conversation. So what is the product? What is the service? What are the skills and capabilities and expertise and competencies and potential that you can offer to the world? And I come from entrepreneurial fraternity. We always talk that the real job of entrepreneurship is you make more so you can give more by making this world a very better place. So what he was saying is so beautifully, what is our shared collective vision to create this a better world, right? And I also agree with what he said. There's no bad news. It's the only one that you choose. And that's what it is, you know. It either by default, the way we are, the way our operating system is, or either by design, either it's by guided thoughts and conditional response, because the event, and mark my conversation in a way that it helps a lot of people when I speak, event and situation and people in the past have no meaning. Mr. Kamran was saying we are meaning maker. So piggybacking his point, event and situation and people and past have no meaning, have no color, have no label, have no flavor. They're meant or labeled or colored or flavored by the meaning that will attach to it. The meaning that will give to any event and situation and people and past. That event becomes that in a moment. That's where we are creating our reality. We are creating our desired result. We are creating our desired outcome. You know, And one formula that I wanted to share in this conversation, and it's just that I was having with the our board of directors: be, do, and have. Be more, do more, have more in life. Be less, do less, and have less. Be a lot, do a lot, have a lot. That is the journey. And in reality creation, coming back to the topic of our conversation, it's not the result that is important, it's who we become in the process. Because life is all about journey, it's not a destination. At every level, there's a different devil, and there's no devil outside. It's you and I, we are constantly, how Jean was saying, competing against ourselves with emotional intelligence and turning or channelizing those thoughts to the life that we consciously want. If you train this mind to work consciously, it will deliver you the life that will deliver the results consistently. So that's very important for us. So what are we doing in our macro level thinking, and what are we doing in our micro level thinking within our world, and what are we doing in the macro level thinking with our shared vision, with the collective collaboration? And that's the reason we are on this table as having this thought-provoking discussion. And one last thing that I would like to share, and it's so related to the topic that we are having. Yesterday, I was having conversation with youngsters, Carla, and it was like, I'm a Urdu poet also, so, and I also write poetry in English. So one of these days I'll share. So they were like, you and I, we all have New Year's resolution every year that, hey, I want to lose weight, I want to do this, I want to be grow in my mental, human, intellectual capital, social capital, financial growth, and so on and so forth. Why we are not able to do what we are able to do? Is Jean touched that point. It's because we are logically aligned, but we are not emotional about it. Once you become logically aligned and emotionally aligned, then there is a third alignment, which is your physical alignment. You have to take action. Knowledge plus actions equal results. But once you become spiritually aligned, that is a game changer. Then when you're aligned with the vision and mission and purpose that is bigger than you, then life is all about journey. It's not a destination. And at each and every moment, you create reality. And I've shared this on your show that they always say, yesterday was history, tomorrow is a mystery. So be in the moment, own the moment, seize the moment, own your now, because your now will dictate your reality. Over to you, Carla.
Actually, we only have this very moment. We don't know what's going to happen 2 minutes from now. And what happened 3 minutes ago, we don't, it's over. If we say something kind of nasty to someone, we've already done it. But we can always change it by how we get into this very moment. And we have Rehan here. I'm just mentioning it. I don't know if he wants to speak, but we have him here and we're very happy to have him here. Hi, Rehan. Okay. Because you kept on appearing and disappearing, so I figured you didn't want to speak. But going back to the moment, this moment is what's most important. And we worry so much about, should I say this or should I do that? But when we start doing something that we don't feel fear, or we don't take the time to feel the fear, think of how much further we get, because we do what we want to do and it moves forward. Jean, you've been quiet for a while, so.
You brought up a good point. And when we talk about, do our thoughts make up our reality? Do our dreams make up our reality? We're always looking for who's got the power. And the answer is we do. We have our own power. We have one thing that we can control, and only one thing, and that's how we act or react to situations. And, I usually explain acting is thoughtful, reacting is a little bit more on the emotional side and shoot from the hip and unplanned. Both have a role. Both are important. There's no good or bad. But, Cameron was talking about, how we interpret something, and then we brought up fear. And I want to bring up, right now in the news, I was watching the news yesterday, and it talks about the inflation and how it's a 40-year high. And, I feel like the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And I recall a conversation I had the last time we were going through a recession. I was with a group of entrepreneurs, and they were talking about the boom and the bust. And we're in the middle of a bust. And I stood up and I said, and I was just a member in the audience, and I said, I'm listening to everybody, and I'm choosing not to act this way. This is fearful. And every day we step out into the world, we get to choose to do it in fear or to do it in our own right, and to do it with bravery. And I choose, from a business perspective, to be brave. You guys might not think this, but I'm a lot older than you, because actually I was. And I've lived through this. It can be lived through. It's called a cycle for a reason. And that made everybody start to think a little bit differently. And that's what I was thinking yesterday. It's like, you Gen X millennial newscasters don't even know what you're talking about, was the thought in my head, because you've never lived through this before. I have, and we will come through it. We'll come through it better, stronger, maybe even more creative. But yeah, there's inflation. Why wouldn't there be? We had 2 years of pandemic. We have a supply chain issue. These are all, they're trying to blame it a politician. And I'm thinking, that's life. And then lo and behold, I opened up an area on Twitter. I was reading a list, and somebody listed the inflationary percentages around the world. So this is a global phenomenon, not a national phenomenon, which takes me back to, this is a reaction to that global pandemic, which none of us had control over. So we choose, are we going to be fearful of this inflation, or are we going to do what every marketer in the world knows? You get out and market more. People who market during downtimes actually come out stronger in the up times. So it's how you look at it, how you interpret it. And I choose to use it as a time to explain to people, fear is false evidence appearing real. So you could be fearful, or you could say, I'm going to put a step forward and I'm going to keep moving towards my goal. And that might quell the emotional part of fear a little bit, but it also helps you process that part of fear. Because fear is an emotion, and we have to learn to process emotions and not let certain emotions control us. Yes, I want exuberant happiness to control me, but abject fear, not so much. So, we get to pick and choose how we act or react. And that's a very powerful concept that many people have a struggle with. I get to choose, do I answer Carla with oh, are you okay? Which we've done, right?
Yeah.
Or last night I was in the middle of a deadline, and I said, is this a me issue or is this a you issue? Which made me think, because at that moment I needed to be doing something else, but I didn't want to stop her. I wanted to actually hear, and her response was such that we were able to come to a meaningful conclusion. But that the point is processing that issue. I will posit that every single 7.8 billion person out there has a level of insecurity that drives them. And it's when we learn how to handle that insecurity within ourselves, changes our world greatly. So it goes back to thoughts and dreams, goals and ambitions. When we see them, when we believe them, when we work towards them, and work towards them is important, then that changes how we show up in the world. and how our world is.
And it's true. I mean, I was feeling very insecure for no reason at all. Really, everything's going well. And here I was feeling really insecure. And I thought, does she want to have anything to do with mind work? Maybe she doesn't want to do it anymore. And I'm thinking, but that doesn't seem right. I'm thinking in a weird direction. And I could have easily decided I'll change it for me and I can go uphill or I can continue going downhill. At the moment I made the call, I was going downhill. And then what you said put me where I needed to be. I needed to make that move uphill. And it was so easy to make that change. Cameron.
Yes, I was looking at the clock and we are on time. So I just thought that I'll share a couple of ideas before we wrap up after listening to Mirza and Jean and you. The first thought, of course, is a card that I had printed back in '92, which was a folding card. So on the caption, it said, I'm in the business of changing the world, ... And it has 9 words. So, of course, anyone who saw that thought I was an arrogant son of a gun. You know, what does he think? He's in the business of changing the world. And this is in '92. And of course, when they opened the next page, it said, within me. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Because I am in the business of changing the world within me. And I think that we all have the capacity to do that. Based on this, I feel there's been an assumption in our conversation, an assumption that we control our minds, which is, I think, an assumption that is not very helpful for many who are listening, and they may be wondering, hold on a second, it all sounds very good, but I'm really going through hell right now. And all this is gobbledygook and it's all nice talk, people sitting in drawing rooms. So I just realized that there is a saying, mind is a terrible master. Mind is a terrible master, but a brilliant slave. Now, the question is, how do we enslave our mind? And who are we to be able to do that? That's a question I want to leave our audience with regards to this. And the moment we are able to control our mind and get it to do our bidding, I think our conversation will start making much more sense.
I love it. Mirza?
I agree with this. What happens outside is outside of our control. However, what happens inside is within our control. So Gandhi says so beautifully that we be the change that you wish to see in the world, right? It's inside out, not outside in. Because when mind is a problem, everything is a problem. When mind is at balance, every situation in life is a challenge. When mind is at power with consistency and continuity, every situation in life becomes an opportunity. It just like goes back to what he was saying earlier so beautifully. There's no bad news. It's the only one that you choose. So train your mind to see the opportunity in every situation. It's all about turning our mess into a message, our garbage into gold, our trash into cash, our pain into purpose, our traumas into triumph, our wounds into wisdom, our acorns into oak trees or lemons into lemonades.
Wow.
Or a message for people to follow and transform this world. We are not in the world of information. We are in a world of transformation, and it happens inside out. 80% of happiness is a state of mind that you and I we need to protect. And we have to, goes back to what Jean was saying, we have to constantly step into our power. Every morning we wake up with a certain level of energy, right? We all have insecurities, but how you deal with it. It's like problem is not the problem. Our response or reaction to the problem is always the problem. Reaction is thoughtless. The response is thoughtful. When you change the way you look at the things, you game change the situation, you know. And don't let the puppet inside you control the master. No, 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 no. It's the other way around. You're the master who's controlling the puppet and create this mind. Nature gives you this mind, but you gotta nurture it every day. Like unshakable, bulletproof, unbreakable muscle that works for you, not works against you. You're the thermostat. You know the temperature. You're the one who's going to call the shot and be on the steering wheel of your life and change it towards the growth trajectory. Because life is all about journey, it's not a destination. And in order for us to be a diamond, we have to first learn to be like from a wood to coal to graphite to diamond, so much pressure and grind and overcoming and becoming, like cocoon to butterfly. And we all have insecurities. Go back to the insecurities, get into the terms with those stories, to childhood traumas and dramas and self-sabotaging, suppressed identity, baggage and limiting beliefs. Once you free, you and I, we free ourselves from ourselves, we are fearless. We are fearless. We are limitless. We are unstoppable. We are unbreakable. We are lean, mean fighting machines towards the mental battlefield called living. And step into your power. That's when you create your reality continuously. And it's just like taking shower. You don't take shower once and you're done for your life. You have to constantly groom yourself. So, so thanks for having me.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Jean?
I want to bring it down to the practical again, and that's take a step. You know, envision where you want to be, how you want to be, what you want to feel, and take that step. We get to change who we are every step we take. And, you know, the saying is the journey of 1,000 miles starts with that single step. Each time that we take a step, we progress to where we really want to go, and take time to breathe and to contemplate where that is, where you want to go. Set a goal, tiny goal, big, hairy, audacious goal, as many call it, but set a goal. I set smaller goals because I like to celebrate when I reach them. You know, so take a step.
But even in the smaller goal, that comes from the bigger goal. And by
There's
meeting
magic.
that smaller goal, you are moving towards the bigger goal or to the bigger dream.
Right.
And I think we are all moving towards our dreams becoming reality.
Just so you know, Capricorn, or the full moon last night was in Capricorn, and the astrologists were all over social media telling us that we were into transformation. And the mantras they wanted us to say is, I welcome transformation, I welcome change, I am ready, I know what I need, and I'm going to get it.
And that's how I'm feeling. I want to thank you guys for coming and speaking to me today. This was a marvelous conversation. And I feel honored that you would take the time and talk to me about it. We will have Mindport next week. I have no idea who will be here until it happens, but that's the whole thing. When we plan ahead of time, things don't always go as we expect. But when we let things happen the way they are meant to happen, then that growth of love and joy develops within us. And with that, Mirza, we want to see your face, not your way.
Quick reminder to ask people who are watching this to share it out on Facebook. And if you're watching us on YouTube, to subscribe and to comment so that YouTube will send it out more often, because that's how the algorithm works. But just a quick reminder to help Carla.
And you know what? I always forget that. Yes, Kamran, I saw your hand move so graciously.
Yes, it was just to wave goodbye as soon as you give us a signal.
Oh, it was just a movement, not
Yes, yes, yes.
not words of wisdom. So, because of that, we will take our hands now and wave goodbye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for having me. Honored and
Thank you
humbled.
for having us.
Thank you for
Great
coming.